Okay, I'm JD Hurst back here with y'all again on the podcast for Bookly Blessed. My guests today are some golden oldies in our lives. You got Mike Lacy there on the right, and he is the OG friend of both Nate and I from way back 100 years ago. Actually, it was 28 years ago. And then I got to meet his beautiful wife, Jessica, who is there on the left. I think it was about 10 years ago, wasn't it? Something like that in Boston for
Yeah,
the golf thing.
yeah. Wow, was that really 10 years ago?
Is it possible that 10 years has passed? I mean, you're way too young to have 10 years have passed.
Yes, because Amelia was 2. So yeah, she's almost 12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
Yeah,
was
wow.
I remember
14.
meeting her cute little self and we were riding around on the trolley. That was so neat.
She's a big kid
Okay.
now.
Yeah, she is almost a teenager, huh? Oh Lord, scary
Very
stuff.
close. Very close. Very close. Too close. Too close.
Well, I've asked y'all to interview and you have graciously accepted. I really, really appreciate your time today. Again, I have started writing the Peyton's Pride series, starting with, hi, baby, starting with um, Peyton's Pride is the first book. We're going to talk about, well, we're not going to talk about, but I'm writing about Adam, Peyton, and Elena Delgado. So I have asked y'all to interview with me because y'all are from Maine. I'm not sure if you're there now or if you're down in Florida, but
Yeah.
I have some very distinct questions about weather in Maine. I've only been to Maine in the beautiful fall and enjoying the fall foliage, so your insights are going to be, instrumental for me in writing this book. Um, this book has already been a little bit of a struggle for me. God gave me this story 25 years ago, which is forever ago. But I've been, stewing on it. And I mentioned earlier that it took me 35 years to get brave enough to start writing and publishing and letting people read my stories. And so that's why it's been brewing for 25 years. I just wasn't brave enough until last year to do this. And um, I guess if you don't mind, we'll just get started with the questions.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep, okay. So uh, my story opens on Adam. He's out in the elements and um, he's battling. He's battling because a nor'easter is just screaming down on them. I don't know anything about a nor'easter. I don't know how that works. I'm judging my experience with the cold on Alaska. 13 years there, that'll teach you some things about cold. But I feel like
Mm.
Alaska cold might be drier than y'all are used to out on the coast of Maine. So if you could just share with me a little bit about, the typical season when nor'easters are the worst and when they really just bring in winter screaming down on y'all.
Would you like to go ahead, Jess?
Sure.
Please.
We've had nor'easters as early as December and
Okay.
as late as April.
Okay.
So within that time frame, I don't know that there's like a specific season, but like anywhere in the winter they can be brought in. I think last year we had a nor'easter in April after we thought the snow was all gone. It came and brought like almost 2 feet of snow.
Okay.
So, but then we had what they considered a nor'easter this year in December.
Hmm.
It didn't bring quite the snow, but it brought all the wet and the wind.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I mean, it kind of encompasses the entire winter season. It's just the type of storm that it is.
I'm thinking that Adam's probably out in these elements in like early February maybe. So that's realistic.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So
And
February
you
is actually
go ahead.
the so sorry, I didn't interrupt. I apologize. Go ahead.
Nope. I wanted to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. I was going to say February is usually the meat of our winter season and the height of our nor'easters. And personally, I would say nor'easters here are characterized by heavy, dense weather, a lot of heavy winds, a lot of dampness. Usually the humidity is pretty high when a nor'easter moves through. It's characterized by either fat snowflakes or, like, for instance, I believe this year we are in a what do they call that?
El Nino.
El Nino year, and so as a result, we're getting heavy raindrops instead of heavy snowflakes a lot of the time. And so the nor'easters are not always characterized by snow, but by heavy damp weather. And as long as the conditions are right, yeah, it'll plop some heavy snowdrops for sure. And so your character that's out there in the middle of February, he's not having a fun time. I'm going to
Yeah.
be honest with you, because of the damp weather, it's going to be very hard to use Gore-Tex clothing and undergarment wear and stay dry.
Okay.
My daughter Evelyn, who you can see here in the picture, she is our native Mainer. She is
Oh,
our child who was here in Maine, and when
excellent.
she was small, we would actually go out in the woods, and we still do today, and we would build shelters, snow shelters, and we
So,
would show them like what it's like to survive out in the cold. And it's in my opinion, Maine is not a very forgiving place in the wintertime, which is really what sparked our interest for being here. Is people don't want to be here in the
right,
wintertime.
right. Okay, well, good. Well, like y'all were mentioning with wind and temps, ice and things like that, do you get a lot of ice with those, or is it mostly just snow?
It's usually heavy snow,
Okay.
not so much the ice. Although if it's cold enough and it's windy enough, the snow is so wet that it often ends up freezing like the top layers or freezing to the telephone wires or electric wires. And that's what causes so much problem.
Okay. Yeah. I
And
think I've seen
it,
images like that, like on TV or something, long icicles hanging from the power lines and things like that. Is that
Yep.
Maine or okay?
Yep.
Okay.
well, the
Excellent.
problems that it creates is not just to hang from the wires, but it takes down the wires.
Yeah.
People
Mhm.
will be trapped here in Maine for weeks at a time without electricity, and so honestly, it is super critical for anyone living in the Northeast to have a wood stove. If
Yeah.
they don't have a wood stove, they can find themselves without heat if they're in a rural area. If you're in a suburban area, chances are you're not going to go without power for longer than maybe a few days to a week. But if
Mm.
you're in a rural area, you can guarantee you're going to be without power for a couple of weeks. And so you better have some sort of off-grid heating source, or do we have a
Generator.
generator? Yes, thank you, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what else? What else would you say that kind of weather brings as far as stress in living here in Maine?
It brings chaos. People will run to the store to buy bread and milk and oftentimes a lot of perishables. But if you know that you're potentially about to lose power, now you've got to take all your food. And we've taken ours before. We had a an Easter ham, or not ham, a lamb, and we had to bury it in the snow because we had lost power and I was afraid it was going to go bad. So we like took it out into a snowbank and buried stuff. We
That's
used
awesome.
Mother Nature's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, power loss, food loss. Like
Yeah.
Mike's so right about the electricity. I mean, we have people that we know and we talk to on the daily. So they live, minutes from us that lost power in one of the last storms for a week.
Oh gosh. That's a long time. I imagine
Yeah.
that back to this story that I'm writing in to 1970, and I imagine back then your power outages would have been worse, more devastating because they can't get to you.
So in the 70s, honestly, they'd be without power for almost half the winter. Like there was
Oh
there
wow.
was no kind of there was no kind of electrical service the way there is today, where they were like snap on it. Um, and
Your dog is super cute.
thank you. Yeah, he's whining to go outside, I think, and so our daughter's gonna handle that. That's Roscoe Blaze. But yeah, as far as your character is concerned, and what he's been enduring at this point in time, especially if he's out in the elements, I mean, he would have had to have created some sort of snow embankment shelter. There would not be a whole lot of wildlife.
Mhm.
Wildlife is pretty sporadic in the wintertime here, unless it's a turkey or a deer. And
Okay.
so, what else?
And even then we don't see him often.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and if he's out in just the elements, like Mike said, building a shelter, because I mean, some of these nor'easters, especially back in the 70s, would bring snow above a grown person's head.
Yeah,
So I mean, even to be able to move around, there's just that much snow.
right. Yeah,
You know, it it would shut down roads
absolutely.
because after storm after storm like that, they had nowhere to put it.
Yeah. Well, he's at work in a rural setting. He's outside of the city limits. He works at a prison. So he's had a really long day when the book opens. And he actually goes outside and he's so tired he forgets his gloves. And to me, living in Alaska, that's like instant hypothermia and frostbite. So I don't know if a nor'easter would carry that kind of weight where, and also can the snow swirl or is it too heavy? It just falls.
Just falls. It's like a curtain. Like you don't walk outside without gear in a nor'easter here in Maine. Like
Mm,
especially if you're a Mainer, like how do I say this? The thing that I heard when I came to Maine is Mainers are hardy stock.
yes.
And to the extent where my brother-in-law would go outside in snowing conditions,
Short.
wearing nothing but a pair of shorts, a pair of sneakers, and a hoodie,
Yeah.
right? And so I mean, definitely some thick-blooded people. So yeah, they would be able to, I guess, endure a little
A
bit.
little bit better, yeah, for sure.
But everyone knows up here when you walk outside, you have gear, like you're
Right.
ready.
Right. Exactly. And that's kind of why that's a little bit of a thing when I mentioned that in the book that he forgot his gloves because he's a lifelong Mainer. He's not going to forget his gloves, except that he's been
Hmm.
at work for 20 hours and he's exhausted. So, that type of thing. So even if the wind is screaming, I can't get that swirl effect with the snow. Is that correct?
Probably not a swirl like I imagine.
Not during a nor'easter.
Yeah, you see, I mean, the wind definitely will howl, but the snow is just dumping down like ferociously.
Okay.
It literally
Basically
comes
like
down.
making visibility terrible.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I'll make that change then. Um,
And as far
Go
as the
ahead.
roads are concerned, she was right. The roads don't freeze, but because of the wet conditions, they become very, very slushy. And
Mhm.
like they didn't have winter tires back then.
I imagine probably, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have winter tires, and so there was no traction on the road. You'll find
Right.
cars everywhere.
Well, that brings up a good point. I'm glad that y'all talked about the roads because in one part he pulls off the road, and I don't think that would be possible on this night because if it's dumping snow and the plows haven't been out there yet, why would they? And I don't know how often the plows ran back then. I would think they would keep their efforts to the city streets.
Yeah, mostly the city streets, in the city they would run round the clock through the storm
Okay.
just to keep up with their efforts. But no, if he's on a back road, like we live on a back road, it's never as clear as the main roads and it's never cleared as much.
Okay. And then back then, they probably wouldn't have had the road crews that we do today. And
Right.
and probably, old Gus would be would be plowing away all by himself back then, is what I imagine. Speaking of roads, what do y'all call like a county road? Because here, we live on a dirt road in East Texas and it's called county road or farm to market road. What do y'all call that?
Route, maybe?
Yeah, just a route, or like a route. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
like Route 7 or
Yeah.
okay, so you wouldn't call it a county road. You wouldn't call it a back road, country road. Okay, that's
At least I haven't heard that.
I mean, yeah, maybe if he's like way, way up north. I mean, because there
there.
they actually call it, like my brother would go to work there and he would call it up in the county. And
Up
so
in the
maybe they probably have dirt roads that are probably similar to that, like county road number, 10, 12. But
okay,
here, if he's anywhere outside of a town, they typically all have names or their route numbers.
Anywhere south of Bangor, Maine.
okay, okay. Um, which also leads us to our next topic, some main terms. For instance, my guy Adam, he calls for now, I can change it because it's weird to me, but he calls his mother mother. Is there something that Mainers call their mom?
Mom.
Just mom.
So, so just from my observation, I'm not a Mainer. As you know, JD, I grew up in Florida, and
Hmm.
so it culturally we are a little bit different. And what I had seen up here is there's a strong French connection up here.
Okay.
Everyone had, excuse me, a large, especially in the 70s, I would say a large number of the population had a very strong French Canadian background.
Hmm.
It was pretty homogenous in that sense, and so you hear a lot of French terms like ma mère. You know how to pronounce these better than I
You
do,
you did a great job,
like
Mamere,
count,
prepare.
ma mère.
But that's for like your grandparents and your aunt. Like I don't remember, and I'm trying to think with all my friends, nobody ever really had an adopted like French term for mom or dad. I
Okay.
mean, Mainers aren't very formal.
Okay. Really
So I mean,
casual. So mother would be
so
too
mu
formal.
yeah, that's what it seems like. Yeah, and that's where like I mean, even Michael mentioned Mamere, that means grandmother. My whole family, we called her Mem,
Mem.
like even though she's our grandmother, like just very informal.
But
And
Okay.
that's your generation, right? Like your mom's generation wouldn't have done
they would
that.
have called them by their French names.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they would have
yeah,
been very formal.
yeah, that's right. It's in the 70s. But
Yeah.
no, I think mother would be a little too formal.
Okay. So your mom and dad called their mothers.
I mean, yeah, because my mom still calls her mother-in-law, who is the only surviving of that generation, mom.
Okay. So mom. Would ma be weird? Would that never be heard there?
I don't think so. My kids actually use it to tease me because it's kind of out of it's not common.
we
Yeah.
always
So
we always say ma, and then another one will repeat it ma. And so yeah, we have fun with it more than anything.
that one's
Okay.
used more to pick than anything.
Maybe I'll just put it at mom. Make it easy, you know. What about like when you're saying goodbye or hello or maybe even I don't know, how much time do y'all spend talking about the weather with each other? I don't know.
I'll say the women are very friendly and they are very huggy. However, the men in Maine are not social. They're very stoic individuals. You'll
Okay.
be lucky if goodbye was a handshake. It might just be a grunt. Ugh.
So you kind of stand out as an odd one there, huh?
Oh, oh man, like a sore thumb, man. I stand out so bad. I'll say hi to people, and they're like, "What?" But
Why
and,
are
and
you
it's
speaking
it's
to me?
right, and it's not that they're rude. It's more so if I don't know you, why are you talking to me?
Right.
Um, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's not to be rude. It's that most people in the wintertime, I mean, the winters, especially in the 70s, would have been very long, very solitary,
Hmm.
and very hardworking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They
Yep.
would have spent a lot of hours at work, and when they were at home, they were alone,
Hunkered
or
down because it
just
was
with a family.
dark.
Yeah,
Right.
and the
Well,
sun goes down at 4 o'clock.
at 4 o'clock in the winter.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That makes sense. Well, we're mostly in the dark in this book, so it's nighttime. It's fine. Um, I was gonna ask you something about that. Oh, like in this book where he lives with his mother. Now, this is 1970. He did avoid the draft, but he wasn't a draft dodger. He was he's the primary responsible party for his mother, who has become a little disabled after his father passed away. And then so he was able to say, well, I have to be here to support her. She needs physical help all the time. And so that's how I hate to say got out of the draft, but that's the reason he is not yet in Vietnam. He gets there eventually afterwards, but he did not get drafted. And so you brought up the solitary. Well, his mother stays at home in this big house on the bluff, over the ocean. It's y'all have bluffs, right? Raised levels of
Mhm.
land above the ocean. Yeah.
Yes.
And well, that really moves us right into the next question. What is Maine like outside the cities near the coast? Is there a lot of rural properties? Is there a lot of, um, you know, distance between neighbors? And
You want to go first, or you want me to?
You can go ahead. I went first last time.
Okay. I'll say in the 70s, there would have been absolutely a whole lot of rural property up and down the coast. If you think of the northwest coast of the United States, Maine was probably very similar in the 70s. We have maybe 2 hours of driving distance between the coast and the mountains,
okay,
the Appalachian, to be specific. And
I didn't know they went
within
up that
those, like, oh yes, ma'am, all the way up to almost Canada.
far.
And
Okay.
so
Well, yeah, the
the
AT Trail.
there you go. And the coastline of of Maine reflects the Appalachian Mountains being so close,
Okay.
and the property leading up from the coastline to the mountains also reflects. And I'll let my wife talk more about it, but that's my take. Is it was a very raw. It was a very raw countryside around that time frame.
Undeveloped.
Very, yeah, I would say so.
Probably, yeah, in the 70s.
And
Absolutely.
I'll let my wife talk more about that. That's my take on
Is there any like residual, like, I'm not even, what is your big city there?
it.
I,
Well, there's only. Go ahead, you first.
I mean, if you compare them to big cities all around, there really probably aren't. But
But for
we have
y'all, Bangor.
Bangor, which is farther north. Then you come south past us. Or around us is Augusta. That's the capital.
Right, right. Okay.
And that one's a little more inland. And then there's Portland, which is
Port.
south.
Yeah. Okay. And
Oh,
so,
and Lewiston, Auburn, which is basically we live on the outskirts of Lewiston, Auburn.
okay.
They call them the Twin Cities.
So even today, is there still a lot of rural areas?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. And I apologize for my geographical slip there.
Oh,
I knew some of the city names, I just forgot it.
Quite all
So,
right.
um, then, so did you have anything to add? You had mentioned earlier, Jessica, that you had an idea about your grandmother.
yes. She's a little old school, so I don't know how we would work the video for you, but she's 94 years old. She has lived in Maine, in the Lewiston, Auburn area where we are at now, her whole life.
Okay,
She raised three boys, and she's 94. Her memory is spot on.
that's awesome.
Like she remembers more than Mike and I do. We're constantly amazed by her, and she would probably have many more stories.
We
Awesome.
her nickname for us is the Steel Trap.
Awesome. That's great. I would absolutely love to meet her, even if just electronically. Of course, there's always the hope that someday Nate and I will make it up in your direction, and be able to meet your family too and visit with y'all for a little bit.
Absolutely, anytime.
You always have a place to stay. You know that.
That is so awesome. I really do appreciate that. And I do not let Nate forget it. He doesn't forget it, but with me struggling through the heat here in summer these days, I'm like, Mike and Jessica said we could come up there.
Absolutely.
So I keep pushing for it. It might happen sooner rather than later for the summer because, oh, Texas is killing me, y'all. Oof. Did I
We would
lose you?
always love
Oh,
to visit you. We would love to have you guys, and you would love the weather up here. I mean, it's why we moved up here. It is a
yeah.
very agreeable climate most of the year. Winter is extreme, but it's brief as far as the beauty that's around us for
Hmm.
the remainder of the year.
Awesome. Well, excellent. Well, if your grandmother is willing to meet with me, I can make myself available to her whenever she has time, whenever y'all have time to. My daughter did a Zoom call on her phone. Maybe you could hold up a phone for her and we
She's
can
also,
just
yeah, she's also great with email. She's great with Messenger,
Well, we could go
but
excellent.
we could go
we could
over.
go over to her apartment and simply set up our phone so that you could do a Zoom call with her. That way she could be in the comfort of her place and you would see truthfully an
Yeah,
authentic Maine establishment from someone who is rooted. I
Oh
mean
yeah,
rooted.
absolutely.
She's she's a brilliant, wonderful lady that you're gonna enjoy speaking with.
Well, I really appreciate y'all thinking of that and offering it. Like I said, if whenever she has time, I also have time, since I, stay home and write.
that's awesome.
Um, is there anything else that y'all thought you might want to add or that I missed or that you think might be pertinent to an accurate, though
Mm.
my books are fictional, I try to be accurate, especially
Oh,
about things that could have or did happen. I've been in contact with the Maine State Archives, concerning prison life back then. And then the Department of the Navy has been helpful in because, like I said, old boy goes to Vietnam eventually, and then that's when the Navy gets involved. So
So
I'll actually be interviewing my own father about that. He did serve in the Navy during Vietnam War, and he's also somewhat of a classic car guy and can explain some things because the car has a name in this book. Her name is Betty. She's beautiful. A little
every man
temperamental, but
names every man names his car.
well, I know that, just from spending time with my own dad, I do know that, especially back then, guys did really name their cars. Nate, Nate just,
Absolutely.
Nate just, kind of says, "Let's go," stomps the gas. He doesn't really name his cars.
Absolutely. Hey, so you asked us, is there anything else we'd like to add? There is a little bit more that I'd like to add just culturally, especially in the 70s and still now today. Uh, Maine is a very agriculturally centered state. We have very fertile grounds. However, the growing season is very short. And my wife can add to this. Most Mainers are very conscious about the growing seasons. And
Mhm.
so mentally, as far as the mindset of a Mainer, they are very timely with how they do things. Very preparatory with how they do things as far as this guy's mindset. I mean, most male Mainers that I have run into are very stoic, very preparatory, and very like routine driven.
yes, yeah, you are
Very
correct in
routine
that regard.
driven as a result of the weather that Maine is a very extreme state, and so everyone has to be ready for those seasons. And so yeah, they're very attuned and very um what did I say, routine driven.
Routine's a
Yes,
great word.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
they're always stacking wood year round, always chopping wood year round, always getting ready for the winter year round. Like it's impressive. It's something that I was not used to when I moved up here,
Right.
and I
Because you
still
never
don't
had
chop
winter
wood.
before, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What's winter? Palm trees in the sunshine. But um, but yeah, I mean, there is a degree of preparation that anyone who chooses to live up here then or now has to have. Otherwise, they're not going to last long.
Right. Well, my guy has, like I said, he lifelong, born and raised, and he still lives there because they always have. His family always have. Ever since they got to the United States of America, before they were the United States, probably, they've always lived there. And this house that they have is old and kind of crumbling-ish, not as bad as the prison. Um, which, by the way, the Maine State Archives, they let me in on this article that had been written about the prison system in 1971. And it mentioned that every prison except one was literally falling to the ground with people inside of it. So that'll also be pointed out in the book. And I gotta tell you, I really am so impressed with the people that I keep reaching out to. And I'm like taking shots in the dark, and these people are just so helpful. And again, thank y'all for being here on this podcast and letting me record it and publish it to YouTube. I thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your insight and your kindness to me. Thank you.
No, not a problem at all. We would do this and more. So if you need any other questions answered, we're here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we absolutely love you guys, JD. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we love y'all and again, hope to see y'all soon. Um,
Anytime.
yeah, thank you. Be blessed. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
You too.